Hey guys, tonight I kind of want to go over my opinion of the somewhat current craze of doing remakes. And I know a lot of a few of the films I'm going to talk about briefly are already a few years old, and that's fine. It takes me that long generally to get around to seeing these, but my overall opinion is that there's consistent disappointment across the board. There are a few exceptions, however, that may surprise you. Number one, I'll go over the Halloween remakes by Rob Zombie. I really wanted to like these remakes because I know that Rob Zombie is a huge genre fan, but I know that he has his own distinct vision, and I don't think that those remakes necessarily translated to the broader audience. I think he put a lot of symbolism into the films that didn't. The whole pony thing in the Halloween 2 remake completely lost me. I thought it was weird and just strange. And I give a lot of leeway to these movies. And it had me completely at a loss for words. I didn't enjoy the Halloween remakes whatsoever. The Friday the 13th remake, I mean, how that. I mean, those movies had been sequeled into the ground, so I don't know how they expected an actual remake of the original. I don't know how they thought they could do that without, and just to give credit where credit's due, there was nothing different in the Friday the 13th remake, really, truly, in essence, from the original. I mean, you had a group of douchebag teenagers out in the woods partying and doing things that they weren't supposed to do, and then you had Jason coming after them, which, of course, I mean, will obviously, the fact that Jason wasn't the killer in the first movie was completely sidestepped. But it didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. I knew it wasn't gonna. I went into it with some bias. I knew it wasn't gonna work for me from the beginning, and so I'll admit that. It didn't piss me off or anything like that. I mean, I'm not like angry at the movie or anything, but I just kind of said, it's a meh movie. It may have excited some kids that were, that had seen it, that were my age when I saw the original, but honestly I don't see how they could have been as frightened, because the atmosphere wasn't, but then again, to be brutally honest, I for the most part hate people that are in the age group that are getting killed in these movies now the way they are. So I'm usually just really happy to see them get killed. So that kind of destroys the whole sympathy thing from the very beginning. It's like I can't have any sympathy for these people. There are a few exceptions to recent remakes that I want to mention, though, or somewhat recent, because my idea of recent is within the last 10 years. But I actually enjoyed the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake for several reasons. I thought that they did a decent job of introducing some really screwy characters, just really bizarre characters. And the scene where the one character gets the saran wrap wrapped around its face freaked me out hardcore. Now, this is the reason I point this out is because this is one of my main arguments with reviewing films, is that, especially horror films affect people on a cerebral level. And if there are things that freak a person out, if those elements are depicted in a film, that person will have a very intense fright reaction to that, obviously. And the thought of being completely immobilized and having someone wrap saran wrap around my face, that is probably one of the most horrific things I think that a human can undergo. So, but another person might not have that reaction, and so therefore they just look at it and they see it as a bloodless murder attempt or whatever. And that's fine, but that's one of the reasons why I say that, I can review all these movies and I can watch other reviews of movies, and you can never truly judge a movie by what a horror movie, especially by what another reviewer says. I enjoyed the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. I thought it was relatively well done. Yeah, it was a lot more slick than the original, and that took away from that aspect of what made the original frightening, but there were other elements in there that I thought that weren't in the original film that were, quite intriguing. Another remake that I found was quite effective was I Spit on Your Grave. A little bit more of an obscure remake for obvious reasons. I don't think it had as wide of a theatrical release as some of these others, but the original movie, while it was unflinching in its depiction of the degradation of the main character, I think how it was dated may kind of remove one level of realism from more contemporary viewers, whereas the remake kind of brought the same essence and the same horrific experience that can only be described as, I can't imagine going through what the character went through. But the revenge kills, you were literally at first rooting for the revenge, but the revenge kills were so brutal and so sadistic in their execution that it actually created conflict in your mind. Like, you knew that you should be rooting for the character to pull off these revenge kills, but at the same time you were like, wow, that's really sadistic. So I think it was very, very effective in that manner. Another movie that I thought was actually a fairly decent remake was Last House on the Left. Kind of along the same lines as I Spit on Your Grave, where it's kind of a rape revenge kind of film. This movie had me, I was fully engaged in this film until the end. And I think they lost me at the end of the film. But up to that point, it was a very, very effective thriller, and one that I would recommend to even the most casual horror fan to watch. So I certainly don't dismiss all horror remakes. I will let you know, and this is kind of, maybe it's like my dark, dirty secret, but I will let you know that My Bloody Valentine in 3D, I saw it in the theater with some buddies of mine, And we actually had a good time with that film. The 3D was fun. I think I would want to say we had more fun than had being scared. I mean, there was nothing done in that film that hadn't been done before. In fact, they could have done it under a completely different title and it would have just been the same movie. But it was, I actually own it on 3D DVD and have actually watched it a couple times since its release in the theater and actually enjoyed it. But I think it's because there was a little bit more of a lighthearted take on it for the remake. They weren't 100% serious. I mean, they definitely threw in some humor there and then tried to kind of counter the humor with some more serious, grotesque aspects. For the most part, I think it was fairly effective. I mean, I certainly wouldn't put it in my top 10 or even my top 20 favorites of all times, but I had a good time with it. Piranha, the Piranha remake was another film that I thought was actually somewhat amusing. The 3D, of course, helped. If it would have been in just 2D, I think it would have been, I might have liked it a little bit less, but it had fun elements to it. But once again, this was a movie that they remade. They didn't take 100% super serious. Whereas the Roger Corman original, they took, serious. They tried to make a serious, scary exploitation film, basically just a rip-off of Jaws. But I obviously enjoy the original much better, or much more, for different reasons. Just because sometimes when that element of seriousness is in place, when it doesn't quite achieve what it's trying to achieve, because that serious intention is in place, it actually makes it unintentionally funny. And I think that's when a movie can work, and that's when a movie becomes so bad that it's good. Not that I would put Piranha in the same element as so bad it's good. I just enjoy Piranha. I think it's a classic, nature's revenge type film. But yeah, that's basically my take on modern remakes. I almost want to just say to them, stop making remakes and just, you can look at an original film, and if you're inspired to make a remake of it, feel free to take your spin on it and make a film, but don't necessarily call it My Bloody Valentine or Friday the 13th. Just make it something else, because if you think that the idea you have is solid enough to stand on its own, then you shouldn't have to ride the coattails of previous classics. And that's my opinion. Thanks a lot for watching.